Part of the naivety and the beauty of youth is you're invincible. You know, at 20, you don't think anything's going to bring harm to you.
In 1989, Tiffany Sessions was a 20-year-old college student at the University of Florida.
She was really warm and friendly, always had a smile on her face, fun. She was, I would say, a really fun-loving girl. My name is Kathleen Frezza, and I was Tiffany's roommate.
Short outfit for college.
When she came back from Christmas break, she had started exercising. She's like, I've been walking, I've been losing weight, I'm feeling really good. She's like, come with me. So at certain times I would go with her. On February 9th, I did not go with Tiffany. She left around 4:45. 5:40 rolls around, the sun's going down, Tiffany's still not back. It was very unlike her. I went out, I got in the car, I drove around the route to see, I don't know, maybe she fell down and she hurt herself, but nothing. I never heard from her again.
She's a smart kid, she's resourceful, and if she's in trouble, she's going to be doing everything she can to get out of it. And I just hope that if anybody's got her, they know that we're willing to do anything to get her back.
What would you say to her if you could now?
I love her.
How long will you look for her?
No, I think till the day I die. I mean, how do you not look for your kid? You can't stop.
I began my investigation into the disappearance of Tiffany Sessions in January of 2013. There had been many leads over the years, but none of them had panned out. I learned 3 years after the disappearance of Tiffany Sessions, another 20-year-old college student was found less than a mile away. Her name was Beth Foster. I started to wonder if the killer of Beth Foster could be the killer of Tiffany Sessions. This was Beth Foster's head, and this was her feet. First question I had is, well, did anyone check the surrounding area for other graves?
Kevin, how easy would it be to hide a body?
Very easy.
I thought we would find her in 24 hours, and then 24 days, and then 24 months. I never thought 24 years we'd still be here.
I think we're very close. I think there's a good chance she's there.
I'm Tracy Smith, tonight on 48 Hours. The Lost Daughter.
Heavenly Father, we got a simple prayer. It's really simple. Help us find Tiffany. We know without your grace, without your blessing, it won't happen. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Let's go.
Do it.
For 25 years, Pat and Hillary Sessions have been searching for their daughter Tiffany. And in January 2014, in this forest in Gainesville, Florida, just over a mile from where Tiffany disappeared,
There was another girl in 1992 who was actually found here on the site.
they hope they may finally find her.
I am extremely optimistic.
What are you feeling going into this excavation? Are you nervous?
I'm a lot more nervous than I thought I would be. I've done other searches, and this one I'm a lot more nervous about because it may not be true, but it sort of feels like a final hurrah. You know, I pushed and pushed so many people for so long that I don't know how long I'll do it. Sorry.
Do you think the emotion comes because maybe it's the end, or maybe it's not.
Yeah, I don't know. It needs to end. Everybody needs closure on this.
In 1989, Tiffany Sessions was a junior studying finance at the University of Florida in Gainesville. She had dreams of running a company one day.
She knew what she wanted to do. She knew where she was going to go.
She was determined to make something out of herself.
Tiffany had a good role model. Pat Sessions was a well-known marketing executive for a giant real estate company in South Florida. He oversaw the creation of Weston, one of the biggest building projects in the United States.
She kind of wanted to be like Dad, follow in your footsteps.
I've been told that by her friends.
Pat and Hillary divorced when Tiffany was just 8 months old. Hillary was in the U.S. Air Force, and as she traveled around the country, she brought Tiffany with her.
I was the mom. I was the dad. I was the disciplinarian, the provider. There wasn't anything that we didn't do together. And we worked as a team.
You called her your masterpiece.
I did. Because I only had one. I worked really hard on making sure that she was as nice on the inside as she was on the outside.
Growing up, Tiffany didn't see a lot of her father, but in her teens, they reconnected. Pat was in his late 30s, a bachelor, living in an oceanfront home in Miami's affluent Coconut Grove.
The summers were the times that we spent together and holidays.
Tiffany also got to know her half-brother, Jason.
My father is always a very active, fun guy, so when we came together for those different times, we were always doing neat experiences, going on the boat, the beach, different activities like that. So yeah, that's where we really got to know each other.
Both of them were single kids, so they didn't have anybody else. They bonded together very quickly.
But for Pat, missing out on so much of his daughter's childhood had taken its toll.
It was a lot of catch-up, and overcoming a lot of bad history between her mother and I.
Tiffany was very close to both her parents.
Kathleen Frezza, Tiffany's college roommate.
She loved her mom, and they had a very special relationship. She spoke with her frequently, almost daily, I would say, on the phone. With her dad, because she was able to renew that relationship with him, that was really very touching for her.
And when Pat bought his daughter a Rolex watch, Kathleen says Tiffany never took it off.
She just loved it, partly because it was a Rolex, partly because it was from her dad, so it held a really special emotional tie for her.
In fact, Kathleen has never forgotten one of the last conversations she had with Tiffany, just before she went out for that final walk.
Before she walked out, Tiffany said, "I'm going to take off my jewelry." She said, "I'm keeping my watch on. If somebody comes after me, they're going to have to fight me for the watch."
Tiffany never returned to her apartment while on an evening walk.
When Tiffany did not come back, I still had hope at that time.
I just really am still pretty hopeful and continue to believe that she will return safely.
There were people in the apartment, outside the apartment, milling around, trying to figure out what we needed to do.
The day after Tiffany went missing, Pat and Hillary arrived in Gainesville.
I got here and I didn't even rent a car. I did a cab because I assumed all this was going to be over relatively quickly and Tiffany would give me a ride back to the airport.
But Pat knew the situation was serious when he learned that Tiffany had left the apartment with only her watch and her Walkman.
She didn't have her wallet, her driver's license, her car was there, and that was the scary part. All that stuff was there. And we were all starting to get nervous as the day went on.
I think there was a sense of urgency here.
Jim Eckert was one of the lead investigators on the case.
This young woman didn't have any, baggage, as it were. It wasn't like we had a boyfriend or some strained relationship. She was a good student. She was pretty much always on the mark. So for her not to have shown up was pretty unusual.
She's a smart kid, she's resourceful, and if she's in trouble, she's going to be doing everything she can to get out of it.
Pat sprang into action. He put his marketing skills to work and organized one of the largest missing person searches in Florida history.
I need your help. I need the word to get out on Tiffany.
From day one, he was so driven, he ran like a business. He really did.
We're attempting to find Tiffany, and we're just investigating every lead.
Pat brought in Wayne Black, a private investigator who specialized in recovering missing children.
Pat had within, I think, 24 hours, Tiffany's picture on the inside of every pizza box being delivered in Alachua County.
If you see anything or talk to anyone or hear anything, please give us a call.
Volunteers blanketed the state with flyers, put Tiffany's face on billboards, and answered a 1-800 hotline. Jason Sessions, just 17, also helped to get the word out.
She left the house without keys, without jewelry, without makeup, and that's not Tiffany.
It was amazing to me how small South Florida became in understanding who Tiffany Sessions was and what we were doing and what we were going through.
All right, I really appreciate you calling, and probably somebody will be calling you back from the FBI or somebody just to kind of get
My goal was very simple. It was to make sure that everybody that I could knew what she looked like, to try and get as many people out there looking for her as I could.
I'm curious whether that helped you with the emotional side of things,
Yes,
to
it
be
did.
able to look at this from a business marketing point of view.
Yes, because I felt useful, because I felt in control. For every 50 people that pass out a flyer, one story that you all can run does 100 times that.
Pat set up press conferences and recruited his famous friends, like football legend Dan Marino.
What I'm going to try to do to help this team is to try to call on all my friends throughout the NFL.
Today, you can push a button and you reach 1 million people on Facebook.
To try to get some nationwide coverage for Tiffany to try to help her.
In those days, TV was my Facebook.
Politician Jeb Bush also helped out, and so did America's Most Wanted host John Walsh, whose son Adam was abducted and killed in 1981.
I know the nightmare firsthand of having a missing child and what he's going through. We can only assume that she is alive and that she is somewhere, and we just hope that there will be some type of word and that you will spread the word.
People are committed because of Pat, because he just asked them, come help me. And you know, he's irresistible in that regard.
There is a massive investigation going on. What they want from us is information, leads, physical clues.
Just 1 week after Tiffany disappeared, over 700 people showed up to search the area around Tiffany's walking route, hoping to find any clues as to what happened to her.
There's something out there somewhere, and we just haven't turned it up yet.
It was freezing cold that day. It was a terrible day. It was drizzling. It was cold.
When you find any evidence, just stay away from it. Let me know. I'll come take a look at it. And we'll get
We had busloads of troops that came in to help us with the search. We had Dolphins players, all of our friends and family from South Florida who were up here.
Start down there by that fence.
We went real hard at the area where she walked, trying to find the Walkman, trying to find her watch, trying to find anything.
And it turns up?
Zero. Absolute zero. Not a thing.
That was the longest drive home because I was so euphoric that, well, we're going to find something. I think the hardest part was, what do I do now?
In your trying to solve the case, I would imagine you went up and down this road. An awful lot.
A lot.
Former Detective Jim Eckert still remembers every step of the walking route he thinks Tiffany Sessions took the night she disappeared.
This was all thick woods.
So it would have been fairly easy to snatch somebody.
It was what you'd call a private place. This was a huge construction site with a lot of people coming and going.
He always wondered if Tiffany's abductor could have worked here at Hunter's Run.
We talked to certainly as many as we could.
And nothing.
Nothing.
The hotline was receiving as many as 600 calls per day. But in 1989, technology was so primitive, detectives were quickly overwhelmed.
We were using DOS systems and sticking big disks in computers, and most cops didn't even know how to do that. You know, we didn't have a fax machine.
They didn't have a fax machine.
So I bought him one.
How many leads came in?
Too many. I've always worried that there was so much that it got lost in the shuffle.
Something fell through the cracks.
Weeks turned to months.
First month or two, still had a lot of hope. Every day that goes by, the odds drop astronomically. And I knew that things were not looking good.
And then detectives received a promising lead. An anonymous inmate wrote that Michael Knickerbocker, a convicted serial rapist and murderer serving 5 life sentences, confessed to killing Tiffany Sessions.
You went and talked to him?
Sure. He was a spooky guy. You got bad vibes off of him. You know, like, well, did you do this? No, but here's how I would have done it.
Michael Knickerbocker never confessed to detectives that he killed Tiffany, but he did confess that he was the one who wrote the letter as a mean joke.
And these guys do that. I mean, I could show you 50 letters that I got from guys in jail. I realized early on that I was dealing with a whole subculture of people that were just subhuman.
When the Knickerbocker lead fell apart, Pat offered a cash reward, hoping someone would come forward with information about his daughter.
When you put out a reward, it happens in every case. You get every nut job.
But one lead seemed credible.
You get your hopes up. You think, maybe this is it.
It was from a man who said he knew where Tiffany was and that she was sick and in need of medical attention.
He says, don't hang up.
The caller sent Pat on a wild car chase all over Miami.
He says, you hang up, I'm gonna kill her.
But the caller turned out to be a professional con artist. He was caught by the FBI and sent away to prison for a little over 6 years.
I was emotionally up to here. I really thought this guy might really know something.
And as the reward climbed to $250,000, Pat endured 2 more extortion attempts. And then, 1 year after Tiffany went missing, when Pat thought the news couldn't get much worse.
The 2 women found murdered Sunday afternoon were U of F students.
Within 4 days, 5 students were murdered in Gainesville. Detectives had a serial killer on their hands.
Did you think Tiffany could have been connected to that?
Oh, of course, the first day you wondered. Yes, I thought that maybe it was the same person.
Weeks later, an ex-con named Danny Rolling was arrested. He later confessed to the 5 Gainesville student murders, but he never confessed to killing Tiffany. Detectives dropped Rolling as a possible suspect when they learned he was in Shreveport, Louisiana, the evening Tiffany disappeared.
The biggest challenge always in a case like this is to keep everyone motivated.
When the leads dried up, private investigator Wayne Black tried to keep the momentum of the investigation going.
The case got cold, so you have to remind them it's still a kidnapping, it's obviously a homicide, and let's work it.
And Pat and his team kept working it for 25 years.
Was there ever a time that you wanted to give up?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie about that. I mean, there was times early on when I was just so overwhelmed and didn't, and the frustration of not knowing what to do. And the good news was, even when I'd start to slow down, everybody else pushed me.
And no one pushed Pat more than this woman. In 2006, Sadie Darnell became the first woman elected sheriff in Alachua County. She was just a young cop in 1989 when Tiffany disappeared, and that memory stayed with her.
It was very jarring and very scary and very haunting to think that that could happen in our midst. And then this many years later, still having it unsolved.
Throughout the years, even though she was never actually assigned to the case, Sadie would mail and fax Pat words of encouragement.
September 15th, 1995. Patrick, I know this must be difficult for you to maintain a constant struggle for Tiffany's case.
I've always believed it can and will be solved. I have loyalty to you. The overall goal is for you to have Tiffany back, and in some time in the future, peace.
Call me anytime to vent, strategize, coordinate, kick butt, etc.
Etc. Always, Sadie.
So when Sadie became sheriff, One of her main goals was to set up a cold case unit and find out what happened to Tiffany Sessions. In January 2013, Sheriff Darnell hired Detective Kevin Allen to do just that.
He's one of the best I've ever seen. In fact, I kept asking, where has he been all my career? This is the kind of guy that gets the cold case stuff. That's the kind of person that you need on this.
She told me very matter-of-factly, I want this case solved during my tenure here.
And Sheriff Darnell told Detective Allen that she wanted him to focus on one man, a convict by the name of Paul Rolls.
I'd been in that case for a couple of weeks. I'd never read the name, never heard the name. She said, get down and talk to him. Talk to him right away. Time is of the essence. I have an 18-year-old daughter. My daughter is the light of my life.
It's that personal to you?
Yes.
When Kevin Allen joined the Alachua County Cold Case Unit early in 2013, he knew working on the Tiffany Sessions case would be difficult for him.
Just being a parent and just the thought of something happening to your child. I have a picture of Tiffany Sessions I keep at my desk. I go to bed thinking about that case and I wake up thinking about that case.
We look at all the cold cases. We can't forget the past, and we can't just let it go.
Sheriff Sadie Darnell made the Tiffany Sessions case a priority.
You need to lift up every rock, peel back every layer.
She started by giving Detective Allen that lead to look into convicted murderer Paul Rolls.
What I found was that Paul Rolls was a psychopath, a serial killer. He had sadistic tendencies, sadistic fantasies.
And Detective Allen would soon learn that Paul Rolls had a long and violent past that lasted over 20 years. In 1972, he killed his first victim, former beauty queen Linda Fida. At the time, Rolls was a newly married 23-year-old architecture student.
Linda Fida was a neighbor of his. They lived in an apartment complex in North Miami. Paul was a stalker. I mean, he would plan and watch his prey. He saw her through the peephole in his door to his apartment, and that's how he watched her.
When Linda Fida went to do her laundry, Paul Rolls snuck into her apartment, and when she returned, he tried to rape her. She fought back, and he strangled her.
This was a nude young girl in the bathtub.
Detective Marshall Frank, now retired, rushed to the crime scene.
One of the things that we found that was different on this crime scene than other crime scenes was a couple of Band-Aids.
Detectives were able to get toe prints off those Band-Aids. Then, a day after the murder, when they knocked on neighbor Paul Rolls' door, they immediately noticed Band-Aids on his toes.
So they went and took a toe print from him, compared it against the print that they had at the scene. They had their guy.
After his arrest, Detective Frank was shocked when Rolls quickly confessed.
There was no voices raised. There was no hate or anger, just kind of like matter-of-factly going over something that just happened.
Detective Frank says Rolls told him he had sexual urges that he couldn't control.
I just asked him, how long have you had these kinds of feelings? And he said, for a while now. My thought process was, this man has a severe problem.
Detective Frank believes Paul Rolls was the most dangerous type of killer.
When you met him at that time, you met a nice guy, anybody would trust. Have him over for dinner, you'd never know. You'd never know.
Rolls was sentenced to life in prison for the murder of Linda Fida. But in 1985, Rolls' life sentence was abruptly cut short when he was suddenly released and out on parole.
I thought, oh my God, that's not good.
That was the deal back then, through prison overcrowding and lots of crime in the state of Florida. The average sentence for life in prison was 15 years.
Rolls only had to serve 13 years of his life sentence.
This is the kind of guy who should not be released from prison. I mean, he committed a heinous crime without any guilt at all.
In 1988, Rolls settled in Gainesville, where he worked as a pizza delivery man. He also had another job putting up scaffolding on that apartment complex Hunter's Run, located right on Tiffany's walking route.
He always stayed under the radar. When I interviewed his boss at Pizza Hut, he said it was as if Paul didn't want to be seen. He just maintained an extremely low profile, as many serial killers do.
In 1989, just 1 year after Paul Rolls moved to Gainesville, Tiffany Sessions disappeared.
How could somebody just totally disappear off the face of this earth with no evidence?
And it turns out Rolls did not show up for his pizza delivery job on the day Tiffany vanished. And then in 1992, just 3 years after Tiffany went missing, Beth Foster, that other college student, was found murdered just 1 mile from where Tiffany went walking.
Every time something happened up here in Gainesville, I was concerned.
Tiffany's mom, Hillary, immediately thought that the two cases could be related.
You thought back then, back in 92,
Absolutely.
that this could be a serial killer.
Absolutely.
The same guy who murdered Elizabeth Foster could have taken Tiffany.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and I've said that all this time, but nobody wanted to listen to me.
Private investigator Wayne Black says at the time, police couldn't link Rolls to either crime.
Remember, we didn't have the forensics that we have today. We were really in the dark ages.
And even though Rolls, by then 43, was an ex-con living in the area, police never questioned him. And just 2 months after Beth Foster's murder, he quietly left town.
Paul Rolls had lived in Gainesville for about 4 years, and I think the heat was on basically at that point, so he got out of town.
And in 1994, Rolls struck again, this time in Jacksonville, when he raped and attempted to kill a 15-year-old girl. She was able to escape and identified Rolls as her attacker. Rolls was convicted, and this time he was sent to prison for good.
He was confronted soon after the crime and gave a full confession.
To that crime?
Yes.
To the young girl?
Yes.
But what about to the other crimes? Elizabeth Foster, Tiffany Sessions.
He wasn't interviewed about either of those cases in a timely fashion. The dots had not been connected.
Over the next few years, as DNA technology advanced, detectives submitted Rolls' DNA to the FBI database to see if he could have possibly killed others. And although it took 18 years, finally, in 2012, there was a match to Elizabeth Foster. How big of a development was that, linking Elizabeth Foster's death to Paul Rolls?
It was huge. Years go on, decades go on, and nothing's happening, no new information. So it was energizing, it was wonderful.
Sheriff Darnell knew that if Paul Rolls, who was now 64, had killed Beth Foster, he could also have killed Tiffany Sessions.
She was a young white female. They lived in the same quadrant of our county. Paul Rolls didn't show up for work the day that she went missing. You gotta look at him. You gotta look at him.
Detective Allen couldn't wait to confront Rolls, hoping he would cave and confess to Tiffany's abduction. But when the detective went to question him in December of 2013, Rolls was in a coma and dying of lung cancer.
Did you hope that maybe he'd wake up?
Oh, sure. And with a last twinge of conscience, could, would, should say, I did it and this is where she is. But that didn't happen.
Paul Rolls died almost 2 weeks later. But Sheriff Darnell was not giving up.
I sent an email to Kevin Allen saying, crap, crap, crap. Get down there and get his personal belongings as soon as possible.
Something in her gut told her to get a hold of Paul Rolls' personal property.
And what Paul Rolls left behind changed the entire investigation.
I got chills when Kevin showed it to me.
When Detective Allen went to retrieve serial killer Paul Roll's personal belongings from jail, it was 24 years after Tiffany Sessions disappeared.
It was just one box.
He didn't think he would find much.
And it's just a lot of letters and loose writings and stuff.
But then he came across Roll's address book.
I said, I should copy this. This might be relevant. And there in the dead center of the book is a date, 2/9/89.
I went, oh my gosh, because that's the day Tiffany disappeared.
Then he saw what Rolls wrote next to the date.
Then number 2. I knew Linda Fida was his first victim, and chronologically, Tiffany Sessions would have been his second victim. I almost fell down when I saw it.
What was going through your head?
We have a possible link to the Tiffany Sessions disappearance from Paul Roll's personal property.
It's a huge break.
Lucky. Really lucky.
And that's not all that was in the address book. Rolls had also written down the names of all of his other victims. Linda Fida, Elizabeth Foster, and the 15-year-old girl Rolls raped and attempted to kill in Jacksonville, a minor whose name we won't disclose.
Some serial killers like to keep a diary. Some keep artifacts. Some like to write down what they've done, a feeling of accomplishment. Look what I did. I've got 2, 3, 4.
I said, can I see it?
This could be the smoking gun piece of evidence Sheriff Darnell has been looking for all these years.
I was literally shaking, holding it, to see it and to see the depth of what that meant. After all these many years, there's a possibility, just a possibility, that this case could be solved.
Once he discovered the address book, Detective Allen ordered up cadaver dogs to search the site where Rolls buried Elizabeth Foster.
They all alert about 20 feet from where Beth Foster was buried.
So what did that say to you?
There's human remains here.
And it could be Tiffany.
It could be Tiffany Sessions. He obviously was in a comfort zone there. He left Beth Foster there for a reason, so he may have left multiple bodies there.
So on January 13th, 2014, just 1 month away from the 25th anniversary of Tiffany's disappearance, Pat Sessions and Detective Allen have gathered a team of people to help at the excavation.
25 years ago we started. I hope we're going to finish. I want to be there for the end of this if it is.
Some members of the team have been searching for Tiffany since she went missing.
I've probably been on over 20 searches for Tiffany.
Dr. Michael Warren is a world-renowned forensic anthropologist, an expert in identifying human bones.
I've had Tiffany Sessions master file on my desk for 21 years.
He's been actively involved in the search for Tiffany since 1991.
She's just been one of the cases that I would really like to resolve.
And he knows it is not going to be an easy task.
It's very hard to go out and do an organized search over such a large area, so we've got to be pretty aggressive.
And if they find any bones, Dr. Warren will know if they are Tiffany's.
I've memorized her dental pattern and her dental chart. I'll know if it's her or not. To find her would just be a remarkable feeling.
Their plan to dig for 5 days.
I feel good about the operation. I feel good about the people on the ground. So we're all thumbs up, trying to stay positive.
After clearing the trees, they now begin the tedious job of sifting through every bit of dirt, looking for pieces of human bone. And in the afternoon, they do find a bone. But it's not human. It's a deer bone. Pat is disappointed, but he knows they have a lot more ground to dig.
We waited this long, worked this hard to get here. It's amazing. The commitment from everybody.
And if they don't find Tiffany here, Jason will never stop looking for his sister.
I don't have any doubt if I drop dead tomorrow, that he'll just keep on going. And I hope he doesn't have to. Maybe we'll get lucky.
Yeah, I'll continue looking forever. As long as there's a lead to follow, we're going to continue looking.
With just 3 days left to dig, Tiffany's mother, Hillary, is adamant. The search will be over.
This is definitely the one. You know why? The pieces are fitting. Everything is fitting in place. This is it.
Is it hard to imagine that Tiffany might be in that spot?
I don't know what's worse, having absolutely no idea what happened to her, or having someone as bad as Paul Rolls having done it.
Believing serial killer Paul Rolls murdered his daughter makes it even harder for Pat Sessions to understand how, after receiving a life sentence in 1976, he was ever released from prison.
That makes me sick. Tiffany would probably be alive today if they hadn't let that guy out.
On day 3 of the excavation,
We're really moving some dirt. There isn't a chance we're missing anything.
Pat starts to wonder if Rolls may have buried Tiffany someplace else.
Am I losing optimism that we're going to find Tiffany this go-around? It's hard not to.
Later that day, Pat's fears come true when excavators finish digging in the areas where the cadaver dogs alerted and find nothing.
Certainly dogs are very good at finding the recently dead who are giving off these human-specific scents.
Forensic anthropologist Dr. Michael Warren says cadaver dogs sometimes can be unreliable when trying to solve cold cases.
Skeletons are a different thing. They just don't have any odor, associated with them.
And with no focus on where to dig, by the end of the week, the excavation comes to an end.
We have not found Tiffany Sessions.
Was it disappointing? Yeah, really disappointing. But we're never going to find out if we don't keep trying.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. This has been a long journey.
And then, just 3 weeks after the dig, Sheriff Darnell goes public about Paul Rolls.
He was in this community. He murdered in this community. He had made comments about this site being a dump site.
Darnell hopes that someone will know something that leads them to Tiffany's remains.
If you had any involvement with him, if you know of anyone who had involvement with him, bring it forward.
For Pat and Hillary, there's a sense of finality to this moment. They think they have their man, even if they don't have their little girl. And above all, they're grateful.
I want to thank the people who have come over the last 25 years.
They're especially thankful to Detective Kevin Allen.
This is the guy that's made everybody work.
He's the one who gave Pat and Hillary the answers they've been longing for.
I think he solved the case. I think we found who took Tiffany. I believe that.
I think anyone who has children is touched by the case of Tiffany Sessions, especially myself. I know the sheriff, too.
Thank you so much. Oh, yeah, you take care.
It was an emotional day for all of us.
Tiffany's case is still officially open, but over the years, Pat and Hillary have tried to bring closure to other parents of missing children. Hillary has worked with advocates on child protection legislation, and Pat works directly with families.
You know, you try to find something, as corny as it sounds, try to make some meaning out of something, try and do something positive out of a terrible thing. And I think that's the best thing I could do. You know, if somebody calls me, I'm there.
My cute little Missy. I'm very comfortable here in her room. On bad days, like sometimes her birthday, I come in and sleep here in the room because I just feel very close to her at that time.
I honestly do think that if Tiffany were here, she'd say, get over it. I don't think she'd want me to be spending my entire life, having already spent 25 years of this, trying to do something that isn't going to bring her back.
So if you imagine that she would tell you, knock it off, Dad, move on, why do you keep doing it?
For my own benefit. To try and to do what I think I should have done. I don't want to ever, if she walked in the door tomorrow, you know, I want to always be able to say that I did the best I could do. That's all anybody can do.
I love his smile. He has a beautiful smile. And look at his eyes, they just sparkle. My name is Sharon Krausnick, and I'm Jim's wife. I've been his wife for 23 years. These were beautiful, happy days before this whole nightmare started.
Nearly 40 years have passed since Brighton resident Kathleen Krozenak was found murdered in her own home. Now prosecutors say Krozenak's then husband committed the crime.
That's Jim as a young man.
So this is Jim's first wife, Kathy.
Yes, it is. You can see Jim and Kathy so obviously love one another.
It was one of the most horrific crimes that we've seen in Rochester.
It does not appear that she ever saw this coming, that she ever woke up.
The case is known as the Brighton Ax Murder. This is the axe that was found in Kathy's head.
Her 3.5-year-old daughter was there throughout the day with her mom dead in the bed.
How soon did Jim Krausnick become the suspect in his wife's murder?
Oh, I think within 24 hours.
They felt that there just wasn't enough evidence to charge him at that point.
They went through the years thinking, we're going to get something.
It just went cold.
James Krausnick will stand trial later this year for the murder of his wife in their Brighton home nearly 40 years ago.
No other physical evidence at the scene points to anyone other than James Krausnick.
Basically, it became, who else could it be?
If Jim Krausnick did not kill his wife, who did?
Larrabee.
Early on, police learned about this fella who was living not far from the crime scene.
This evil man that lived so close to Kathy and Jim.
Well, he was a one-man crime wave. He was a psychopath.
They ignored him.
I have absolutely no doubt that James Krausnick killed Kathy Krausnick that morning.
So you're saying that this man, who had never shown any sign of violence before and never shows any violence after, snaps one night in his life and puts an axe in his wife's head?
Yep. Yeah.
Jim is a decent, loving human being. There is no way Jim would ever have done anything like that.
James Krausnick just doesn't look like an axe murderer.
No, but Ted Bundy didn't look like a serial killer.
I did not murder Kathy.
On a wintry night near Rochester, New York, retired detective Mark Libertor is showing us how he helped bring one of the coldest cases in America to trial. On February 19, 1982, police officers arrived at this home. Which direction was her bedroom?
Right over here to the right.
And encountered a horrific scene.
Their bed was on this wall.
The body of a 29-year-old mother, Kathy Krausnick, dead in bed with an axe lodged in her head.
It was a single blow to the head, and she died instantly, according to the medical examiner.
Jim Krausnick told police he arrived home from work and found his wife's body. His 3.5-year-old daughter, Sara, was there and unharmed. Minutes later, he showed up at his neighbor's house, seemingly traumatized with Sara in his arms. The neighbor called 911.
Her husband's here and he can't even talk.
Krausnick, a Kodak company economist, said he'd left for work that morning at the usual time, around 6:30, and was gone all day. Kathy had planned to stay home to take care of Sara.
You know, the murder in and of itself is baffling and hard to believe.
Gary Craig reports for the Rochester Democrat and Chronicle.
You add this element where Kathy's daughter has been left in the house with her murdered mother. It's inconceivable that somebody could do that.
Police spoke with 3.5-year-old Sara, but she didn't seem to grasp what she had seen. Mark Libertor and his partner Steve Hunt of Brighton PD say investigators at the scene found no significant forensic clues like fibers or fingerprints. And in 1982, DNA had not yet become an investigative tool. But it looked like someone had pushed the pause button on a burglary.
And there was a door leading into the house that had a pane of glass broken out. And there was a maul, which is like a heavier axe, on the ground leaning up against the wall right next to that.
The axe found at the door and the one in Kathy's head both belonged to the Krausnicks. In the dining room, there were valuable items scattered.
And on the floor was Kathy's purse with the contents strewn about.
There was a tea set on the floor, too.
Everything was standing straight up like it was set there neatly.
And a black garbage bag next to it. Inside was a faint shoe print, as if someone had stepped in it to hold it open. But despite many apparent signs of a burglary, police say nothing was taken.
There's an officer involved in this case from the 1980s who hits the nail on the head. We in Brighton do not handle a lot of homicides. We do handle a lot of burglaries. And this was not a burglary.
Investigators suspected the burglary at the Krausnick home was staged to cover up Kathy's murder. And they began to focus on her husband.
Let's face it, I mean, more often than not, it's the husband.
But could Jim Krausnick have committed such a brutal murder and left his baby daughter alone in that house? We spoke to friends and family who said the couple had seemed happy. Kathy and Jim had grown up in the same small town in Michigan. They met in high school, began dating in college, married after graduation, and had Sara in 1978.
She was just so excited about her daughter, just so excited about her.
Kathy Krausnick's friend, Kathy Behe,
And you can tell how beautiful she is.
says she was a warm soul who lived for love, but remembers feeling that the last time they saw each other, just 6 months before the murder, something just didn't seem right.
Not the vivacious Kathy that I remembered.
What was the next thing you heard?
I got a call from my sister, and she told me about Kathy being murdered.
If Kathy and Jim were having trouble, they kept it to themselves. But police discovered a pamphlet in the couple's car that offered services, including marriage counseling. And when they went to Kodak, they learned that Jim Krausnick had gotten his job under false pretenses, claiming to have a PhD when he had never actually completed the program. There was also Krausnick's behavior. Initially, he was cooperative.
He was willing early on to give statements.
Krausnick had spoken to investigators that night and the next morning, even agreeing to another meeting that afternoon. But when the time came,
he was gone.
Less than 24 hours after he found his wife murdered.
Yes.
Krausnick's parents had driven from Michigan and returned there with Jim and Sara. When Rochester authorities followed them to Michigan, Krausnick continued answering their questions and even provided hair and blood samples. 10 days after the murder, he hired a lawyer. Police had a suspect, but they needed to establish exactly when the murder had happened.
Back in 1982, the time of death gave a very broad range. The science was that you really could not pinpoint.
Autopsy findings reportedly narrowed the time of death to between 4:30 a.m. and as late as 7:30 a.m., an hour after Krausnick claimed to have left the house. With no direct evidence against him, nor any clear motive, authorities didn't want to try their luck with a jury.
No one was ever charged with the crime.
Krausnick and Sara eventually moved out west. He would briefly wed twice more, and in 1997, he ran into Sharon James, an old friend, when sparks flew.
And he asked me out, and from then on, for 2 years, we dated.
Sharon says he told her about Kathy's 1982 murder, but didn't offer details.
And I didn't want to pry because he would start getting emotional.
What was it that made you fall in love with him?
Jim is so honest. He's so loving. I wanted to be a part of his family.
They married in 1999 and lived in Seattle. Sharon had no idea that more than 2,000 miles away in Rochester, New York, someone else would set her sights on Jim Krausnick. Monroe County District Attorney Sandra Dorley.
Kathy really needed to have justice.
In 2015, the FBI provided resources to help Brighton police with their investigation.
I mean, you look at all those boxes of paperwork and evidence, it's daunting.
Detectives Mark Liberator and Steve Hunt of the Brighton PD took the lead, and they too became convinced that the evidence pointed to Jim Krausnick. So on April 16, 2016,
We were just having a lazy Saturday morning, and then all of a sudden the doorbell rang.
Hi, Mark Liberator. How are you?
you wanted to surprise him.
Absolutely.
Probably a little bit surprised why we're here.
Did Jim at that point think, maybe I better call a lawyer?
No, not at all.
On the contrary, she says her husband welcomed them in.
Hopefully you get some good news. We just want to kind of revamp everything, go through everything again with you.
They said, we think we know who killed Kathy and we need your help. In that type of a tone.
Yeah, I'm sure you think about this, who could possibly have done this
for a long time.
But then, Sharon says, Detectives Liberator and Hunt suddenly turned up the heat.
Did you have anything to do with this? I didn't kill Kathy. I disagree. Well, then... I think you did.
You could see his heart pounding through his shirt.
I know he did not murder his wife.
Sharon, how can you be so sure? You only have Jim's word for it.
No, when you're married to a man, you know his heart and you know his soul. Jim could never, Aaron, never in this world do something so horrific.
But the detectives still hope to find what investigators 40 years ago were never able to find, a smoking gun that tied Jim Krausnick to the Brighton Ax murder.
Now, you have to remember, back in 1982, there was no such thing as DNA testing. So my first thought was, what can we test?
We sent the evidence from 82 back to the FBI lab.
The results? There was no DNA evidence that directly tied Krausnick to the crime, but none tying anyone else to the murder either.
The most important thing was finding the absence of someone else's DNA within that home.
But to charge Jim Krausnick, they wanted to prove his wife had died before he had gone to work.
We need a definitive time of death.
In order to prove Jim Krausick killed his wife, Kathy, authorities needed to be able to pinpoint what time she died. Back in 1982, the medical examiner was only able to say that Kathy was killed sometime between 4:30 and 7:30 a.m. And since then, other experts have agreed with her. In 2018, prosecutors then turned to Dr. Michael Baden. Baden, a forensic pathologist, has been hired to work on a who's who of whodunit cases, from O.J. Simpson to the assassination of JFK to the reported suicide of disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein. Using the same file from 1982, Baden said it appeared Kathy died at about 3:30 a.m., hours before Jim Krausick said he left for work. He's the only medical examiner to reach that conclusion.
You know, some people may say that we're looking for an opinion.
But if, in fact, Dr. Baden had agreed with the other medical examiners, would you have hired him?
Absolutely not.
Prosecutors went before a grand jury, and Krausick was indicted on November 1st, 2019. Do you have any doubt about Jim Krausick's guilt in his wife's murder?
I have absolutely no doubt.
Attorneys Bill Easton and Michael Wolford both believe Jim Krausick had zero motive for murder.
They had a wonderful relationship. They had a wonderful family.
Jim Krausick went to work. Someone came in and killed Kathy Krausick. We think that someone was Ed Larrabee.
Ed Larrabee, a monster just down the road.
He was just a violent son of a gun and terrible, terrible human being.
Larrabee hunted women. He was a psychopath.
Before dying in prison, Larrabee was locked up for a total of 32 years on charges that ultimately included attempted murder, robbery, and his sixth specialty, rape. In 2014, Ed Larrabee, who was suffering from ALS, contacted the FBI, claiming he was a serial killer, and one of the victims he listed was Kathy Krausick.
Larrabee lived very close by, and she was someone that he was going to prey on.
The idea that decades earlier Ed Larrabee might have murdered Kathy doesn't come as a surprise to investigators.
Everybody from back in that time frame is familiar with Ed.
Police went to question him shortly after Kathy's murder, but Ed Larrabee wasn't talking back then. They filed their report and then backed off. And is it fair to say the police dropped the ball in that case? Because you've got a sexual predator within minutes of the house and they don't do anything more than visit him once?
Oh, I think it's very fair to say that. To have apparently ignored Ed Larrabee in 1982, whether he did or didn't do it, is clearly was just a major lapse in the investigation.
I don't know that I'd use the phrase drop the ball. And unfortunately, the officer and the sergeant who approved that report are both deceased.
Still, the FBI and detectives Libertor and Hunt don't believe Ed Larrabee murdered Kathy. This is a guy who has a long history of hurting women, and he's confessing to killing Kathy Krausick.
Yeah, but his confession was way off base.
Why are you so sure it's not Edward Larrabee?
Because his confession didn't match up to the facts. As simple as that.
Larrabee said Kathy had dark hair when in fact she was blonde, that she was heavyset when she wasn't. Authorities were convinced that Jim Krausick, not Ed Larrabee, wielded that bloody axe. But the case could hinge on mere minutes and prosecutors proving that Krausick was at home when Kathy was killed.
You look at the evidence, it's clear. She was killed in her sleep.
In opening statements today for the James Krausick trial,
The stage was set for a gruesome drama in search of its final act. Really, how would you describe the last 40 years on your family?
This has been a terrible, it's just god-awful. And
Kathy's cousin, Susie Jakumovich, witnessed the shift in Kathy's father, Bob Schlosser, who today believes Krausnick is a killer, but for years was certain his son-in-law was innocent.
I just didn't think that he would do such a thing.
I mean, had there ever been a real serious problem in their marriage that anybody had heard of?
Not that I knew of.
But investigators believe the marriage was secretly crumbling.
He snapped, is what we believe. He just snapped.
People look at Jim Krausnick. He just doesn't look like an axe murderer.
What's an axe murderer look like?
Bob says that over time, Krausnick began separating Sara from her mother's family.
We didn't see Sara anymore.
not only was Kathy taken away, Sara was taken away.
Sarah's a grown woman now, firmly standing by her dad, as sure that he's innocent as prosecutors Constance Patterson and Patrick Gallagher are certain he's Kathy's killer.
No doubt at all.
Absolutely no doubt in my mind.
Time itself had been a daunting challenge in this case, so investigators pursued evidence that didn't rely on the frailties of memory, like the physical crime scene.
I wanted to not only prove that Kathy was clearly killed in the early morning hours, but also prove that it was a staged burglary.
Authorities argued the scene was staged by someone who had no idea what a burglary looked like.
The house wasn't ransacked.
In fact, there was cash on the dresser in the room where Kathy was killed that wasn't taken.
The broken glass, the placement of that maul.
They wanted us to believe that the maul was used to break that pane of glass.
That silver tea set, barely disturbed.
And when you looked at the pieces that don't fit, the reason they don't fit is because it was a staged burglary.
Then there was that faint shoe print investigators found inside this garbage bag.
The only way that gets in there is when the bag is being opened, when items are being placed in that bag.
And somebody is putting their foot on there so they can hold it open?
So you're stepping on the edge of that bag, holding one edge, and you're placing that silver in the bag.
Investigators say the print was from a boat shoe.
There's a picture in that bedroom where you can see next to the bed, you can see these boat shoes.
And whose shoes are those?
And those are James Krausnick's shoes.
But the shoes Krausnick wore back then were not tested to see if they were a match. And his lawyers say it's not just the wrong theory, it's the wrong man. They say it's Ed Larrabee, that career criminal, who before he died had confessed to killing Kathy.
He lives 4-minute walk away.
But there's the problem of Larrabee's M.O. Remember, he was a repeat sex offender. Was there any sign that Kathy had been sexually assaulted?
None whatsoever.
Do you believe that there was tunnel vision in this investigation?
I think there was this overwhelming urge and desire to solve the crime, and it had to be Jim Krausnick.
Cameras were allowed into the courtroom as lawyers made their final pleas.
The mystery of Kathy Krausnick's death remains to this day, and we submit it has not been resolved by this trial.
Common sense tells you this was a staged burglary. Those are the only reasonable inferences that can be drawn from this case.
There are no eyewitnesses. There are no ear witnesses. There is no direct evidence. That was the case 40 years ago, and that's the case now.
But Gallagher reminded the jury that pathologist Michael Bodden put Kathy's possible time of death at 3:30 a.m.
Common sense tells you she died early that morning.
As we said at the outset, there is no new evidence, simply a new opinion by Dr. Bodden. We don't think that cuts it.
The case would now go to a jury. Jim Krausnick's fate will now be determined by 12 strangers. Altogether, it takes the jury less than 10 hours of deliberations.
The foreperson, please rise.
To reach a verdict.
Guilty.
Jim Krasnick is guilty of second-degree murder.
I remember standing up, but I saw this one deputy across from me, and I said, "Oh, please let me hug my husband." He said, "No, I can't."
We got our justice. For 40 years, thank God we got it.
He's innocent.
The jurors we spoke to insisted they decided this case on the evidence they admit had divided them at the start.
I just kept thinking someone else really could have done this.
The forensics did not point to anybody else.
The most important thing to me was the staged burglary scene.
They said that the stage scene was a critical clue, and there was something else they seemed to agree on, that it was impossible to say exactly when Kathy died.
We threw out all of that testimony. It meant nothing to us.
But their verdict means everything to Krasnick's heartbroken daughter, Sara, who spoke on her father's behalf at sentencing.
I've been blessed with the most extraordinary parents. Sadly, they have both been taken from my life. My mother's killer got away with her murder, and my father's life has been taken by a failed justice system that convicted him of a crime he did not commit.
But Sara's grandfather, Kathy's father, has a different message for Jim.
And Jim, I hope you'll live to be 100 years old and enjoy your new home.
And finally, it's up to Jim Krasnick himself to take one last opportunity to address the court.
I did not murder Kathy. I loved Kathy with all my heart and with all my soul.
The judge is unmoved, giving the 71-year-old Krasnick 25 years to life behind bars. You're going to stand by him no matter what?
Oh, absolutely.
But 6 months after Jim Krasnick was sentenced, he died of cancer in prison. Sharon, Sara, and Jim's legal team are appealing the verdict, hoping to clear his name.
Line up for a new season of 48 Hours. 2 important cases, 2 all-new episodes. 48 Hours, Saturday, September 16th on CBS.
I have visible holes in my memory from when I was a kid. You know, trauma. And it's a different kind of trauma because there's a monster involved. It's 30 years later. I can't imagine many things that are as terribly life-changing. I was 2 weeks away from my 17th birthday. What could I have done? What could I have done?
Okay, I've got the command on the phone. They're expecting you down there.
A week ago today, Sara Wood, a 12-year-old, left this church and was traveling a short distance, about a mile to her home. She made it about halfway, and we found her bicycle at around 4:30 that afternoon.
I am Dusty Wood. I am Sara's older brother. I was 16 when she was abducted in 1993.
We need to know where Sara is. Please help us find her.
When I got a call from my sergeant that there was a missing girl, he didn't say runaway, he said missing child, which was unusual. So I immediately drove up there. This is a church that Sara's father was pastor at the time. The day that this happened, she was here doing schoolwork.
Tell me where she rode.
She would have gone right out here and right down this road.
So this is where she took a turn?
Yep, her house is not too far up here on the left. This is the area where the bicycle was found.
I remember that moment. I'm standing next to my mother, and that's when you know. It's all over. It's all over.
Command post we set up a station there. We could do everything out of that church.
This end, right up in here.
There were troopers from all over the state.
All over the state there.
Days went by, weeks, months.
Right.
Would either one of you have ever guessed the turn this case would take on January 7th, 1994?
No.
And this was still back in the day of where teletypes would come across. One came over about an abduction or attempted abduction in Massachusetts.
12-year-old Rebecca Savarese. She's simply walking to school. She's approached by a stranger who puts a gun to her, and that broke the entire case.
She's the key. She's the linchpin. She's what made it all happen. She got away. Okay, that's what put us on to Louis Lent.
Louis Lent came across as just kind of an ordinary guy. He was a handyman. I don't think anybody would have ever conceived that he was doing what he was doing.
I'm Julia Cowley, retired FBI agent and profiler.
He was prepared with duct tape. He had a gun with him. He had a knife with him. He had rope with him. So he was always ready. He's a child predator. He enjoyed going out and driving around and, in his words, hunting for children.
He killed Sara Anne Wood. He did confess to it. But we don't have Sarah's body.
Finding the body is important because then my mother could know where she is.
Do you think Louis Lent will give that up?
I don't know. If he does, it won't be out of the goodness of his heart. He does have a lot to hide.
My sister's life ended, and I couldn't stop that. Someone hurt her and took her life. I know at the time I felt like I could have done something, but I couldn't. She was an exuberant person. She was excited to be alive.
It's been a little over 3 decades since his 12-year-old little sister disappeared. But for Dusty Wood, memories of Sara have not faded with time.
Morning, Sarah.
What?
Morning.
Good morning.
You ready to eat?
No. I want to stay here and play video games.
Every picture you see of her, it's like a big beaming smile, those bright blue eyes.
Dusty says the two of them had a lot in common.
I'm an extrovert. She's pretty extroverted. She's not a person in the background. She stuck out.
Hey, Dad. Dad, over here.
She was funny. I imagine she would be funny now.
On August 18, 1993, Dusty, then just 16 years old, was enjoying a lazy summer day with his family in Sequoyah, a small town in central New York.
That day we had gone shopping, we had come home. We just hung around the house. We lived in the country, so there wasn't a lot of stuff to do.
Sara had made plans to ride her bike to Vacation Bible School at the church where her father was a pastor. It was just about a mile down the road.
The last time I saw her, she was singing Dolly Parton.
Do you remember what song she was singing?
Working 9 to 5. Yeah. She and I were at the front door, and so I was listening to her as she's working 9 to 5, and then She got on her bike and was like, see you later.
When Sara didn't return home later that afternoon, Dusty and Sara's parents began to worry.
So I remember getting a phone call from my parents at my friend's house. Hey, did you see Sara? And me being like, no. And so at that point, we rode our bikes and came home, didn't see her.
Soon after, that's when a neighbor came across Sara's bike hidden in the bushes on the side of the road, less than a half-mile from the family's home. Police were called. Around 6 p.m., New York State Police Trooper Timothy Blaze, who is now retired, arrived at the scene. So, Tim, where was her bicycle found?
It was off the grassy area. It was in where the shrubs are. And there was also some school paperwork that was around. Some papers were blowing around.
And at the time, did anyone remember seeing a truck or a child being grabbed or anything? No. I mean, she just vanished.
Yeah, well, as you can see, I mean, there's nobody here really to see anything, you know?
By early evening, the massive search for Sara began.
We'd be out in the woods searching for her at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, hoping that we find her in maybe a hole or she fell down in something.
48 Hours was invited by Sara and Dusty's parents, Bob and Frances Wood, to witness those early days of the investigation in hopes that the media attention would help find Sara.
Hold for an officer and I'll be right with you.
It would become one of the largest searches for a missing child during that time.
The first day was the worst, first night.
We're just checking to see if anybody have any information on the Sara Woods case.
First night, of course, you know, I was up on the road all night, out in the woods all night. Second day, I was on the road all night, watching.
Pioneer 1 to Federation Command Post.
Bob Wood's tiny church was turned into a state police command post.
Command post right on.
The more people we can reach early on, while the thing is still fresh in their minds, the better chance we stand of maybe turning something up that'll help us. The big thing as far as the uniformed troopers are concerned is the door-to-door.
Anything out of the ordinary in the past week or so?
No. Can that be done with the chopper? The thing that keeps everybody going is the uncertainty. Not knowing whether she's dead, whether she's alive, whether she's a mile away, or whether she's 120 miles away.
So now all I'm doing is praying and encouraging people, because they're doing all the work.
We've expanded the search operation. We're probably into the area of 600 square miles.
I'm getting in fresh crews. I got more crews coming in from different parts of the state.
And we're going to be crawling on our hands and knees. It's really thick once we get down in there.
Let's find that guy, bud. Let's go. When you're dealing with a child, if it hits you personally, it hits me personally, you tend to devote 110%. Let's go. Track him, bud. I hope we find this girl.
Thank you, Lord, for this day, and we thank you now for the good food that we have. We do ask that you would be with Sara, nourish her, protect her. Please bring her home to us tonight. How's it going, guys? Sara's father. Doing a good job out there.
It's like, you know, I'm on a precipice and there's a deep, dark cliff there.
Hi, how you doing, hon? I'm glad you're here.
I really am. And if I step over and self-pity and start to go down there, I may not be able to get back up.
I'm doing just fine.
Frances is strengthening daily. She's in the Bible a lot. Dusty, he's strong. He's real strong.
Tell me about yourself.
Oh, myself? Yeah. I don't know.
What we need is a break, a good solid lead that we can take and finish this case up with.
And Bob believed police were going to get that break.
We're doing the state of Texas.
If enough people could see his daughter's face.
Somebody stops one of these stores and gasses up. 10 minutes later, you can see my daughter. They could make the phone call we need to get.
You see this little person here? This is my baby. Whatever I have to do, I'm going to do to find this little girl here.
Sara's mother, Frances, made a public plea.
Whoever is behind this, I don't hate you. I don't hate you. I just want my daughter back. That's all. I just want her here, right here with us.
Investigators were determined to find out what happened to Sara. and they did not shy away from looking anywhere or at anyone.
Our entire family was focused on getting Sara back. So, you want to investigate me? I'm okay with that. Sarah's got to come home. We'll do whatever it takes, period.
When this happened, people realized this could happen to anybody. It could be their children.
Retired New York State Police detectives Reese Treen and John Fallon were state troopers when Sara Wood disappeared in 1993.
My daughter was only 5 miles from there when this happened at her grandparents' house at 3 years old. It's home.
Treen and Fallon were part of the army of investigators from around the state.
Thank you for your help.
Assigned to search for Sara.
We had no vehicle. She didn't just go into thin air.
They would join Frank Lawrence, one of the lead detectives.
Something or someone had to have taken her.
There it is, right there. Sara, Channel 2.
Yet despite the weeks of media attention that Sara's case received, Lawrence, now retired from the New York State Police, says law enforcement still had very little to go on.
Somebody took her, we didn't know. So when you don't know, you have to eliminate everything, every possibility. And you start local.
And that included questioning the people closest to Sara, her brother and her parents.
You had to look at the woods.
The woods were looked at.
I mean,
We
wasn't
have
that
to.
tough, though?
It's always difficult to do that, you know, especially in this case, because they're such good parents. Bob Wood was there every day.
I'm glad you're here, though. You're helping out a lot.
Every day.
Investigation isn't over. This is one facet.
I had a hard time going there every day.
Once the Woods were eliminated, Lawrence says they turned their attention to investigating known and suspected sex offenders.
Each and every one of them had to be spoken with and eliminated. And we did. We did.
And they still had nothing.
We got this section done.
Despite the long hours and heavy manpower. Until a bitterly cold day in January 1994, 5 months after Sara disappeared, Officer Timothy Blaze was working in the command center when a message came in via teletype, a device that police departments used at the time to share information.
One came over about an abduction or attempted abduction in Massachusetts that I handed off to Frank.
Another 12-year-old girl named Becky Savarese was almost abducted as she walked to school in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, 100 miles away. Becky didn't respond to 48 Hour's most recent request for an interview, but back in 1994, she did speak with me and told me her remarkable story.
I was coming up here.
It was 7:10 in the morning on January 7th at one of the busiest intersections in town.
I was listening to my music. He was on the side of me.
Like where I am?
Yeah. He was saying stuff before, and I didn't know what he was saying, so I took my earphones out to hear what he was saying. And then he said, "Do you see the gun I have?" And I was like, "Yes, I see the gun you have." He's like, "Just do everything I say. Everything would be perfectly okay." I was like, "All right."
He had it up against you?
He had it about maybe an inch away from me.
Were you scared?
No.
You weren't scared?
I wasn't scared. We turned down here to where his truck was parked.
Now, he wants you to go in the truck that's over there.
Right.
You're not intending to go into that truck?
No. If I got away, I didn't care if he shot me. I just knew I was not going to get into that truck.
Why did you know that? Was that something someone had told you, or?
I just felt it inside me. I knew I was not going to get into that truck.
That's when Becky came up with an idea that possibly saved her life. She faked an asthma attack.
I started to fake that I was like losing breath. When I was trying to take my backpack off, he tried to grab for me, and he got my backpack instead, and I just ran.
Becky ran into a man clearing snow off a sidewalk who called the police. At about the same time, a witness called in with 3 digits from the truck's license plate. investigators began searching for the vehicle.
I remember it well because it was a blizzard.
Despite the snowstorm, a Pittsfield officer spotted a truck with those 3 digits in its license plate sitting in a driveway in a residential area. The officer quickly called for backup.
And they knocked on the door and said, who was driving this truck earlier?
The homeowner told the officers a friend named Louis Lent had borrowed the truck, and he just happened to be sitting in the kitchen. When police entered the house to question Lent, he denied knowing about Becky, but willingly agreed to come down to the police station.
Had Louis Lent, that name, Louis Lent, ever come up before?
No, not in our investigation.
Had he ever been connected to a disappearance of a child?
No.
But he had a criminal history?
Yeah, some minor things like bad checks and forged checks, things like that, but nothing that approaches this.
And when investigators searched Lent's vehicle, they knew they had the right man.
They found Rebecca's backpack, they found a gun, they found duct tape and clothesline rope, basically his kidnapping abduction kit.
Although the attempted abduction was 100 miles away in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, everyone wondered if Lent could have also taken Sara.
Got a call from the lieutenant. He says, well, go home and pack a bag and you're going to Pittsfield.
Almost 12 hours after the attempted abduction of 12-year-old Becky Savarese, New York State Police Detective Frank Lawrence struggled through a snowstorm and finally arrived at Pittsfield, Massachusetts, eager to speak to Louis Lent, but he would have to wait his turn.
There's similarities, but it's a Pittsfield case, okay? They would talk to him, then we'd get him in between.
And he was willing to talk to you?
Yeah, he talked to us.
And during their conversations, Lawrence says he and 2 other New York investigators made sure Louis Lent understood why they were there.
I actually showed him this poster, and I said to him, Lou, this is who I'm here to talk to you about. So he knew that eventually we're going to be talking about this, okay?
How did he react, did he?
He was flat.
Flat?
Yeah, he was flat through the whole thing.
Did that make you think he had no idea who she was?
I didn't really care. I was going to find out. That's what we were there for.
But getting Louis Lent to admit anything was not going to be easy. Although Becky Savarese and a witness picked him out of a lineup, it took Lent until the next morning to admit he had tried to take her. Louis Lent was arrested and charged with kidnapping and assault with a deadly weapon. But New York investigators were not done with Lent. They started to ask him questions about other missing kids.
We talked to him. We spent a lot of time with him.
And that's when Lawrence says he and New York investigators came up with a strategy.
We found out that he was religious.
So he says they brought a Bible into the interview room.
That Bible sat on the table in front of him. Anytime he would wander, okay, we would use the Bible. And we go, Lou, you gotta tell the truth. And this comes from the heart. You gotta tell us the truth. We would go back to the Bible.
And Lawrence says the strategy appeared to be working because as the hours went by, Lent started to reveal things about himself and some very disturbing plans for the future that involve kidnapping young victims.
He told us about his master plan. Once he found the acceptable, vulnerable individuals, he was going to bring them back to his house and put them in, like I describe it as a coffin, but keep them alive so that he could use them and have them whenever he wanted them.
Investigators would later find the beginning of his horrifying construction project when they searched Lent's bedroom and found this wooden partition wall, and things only got worse.
He wanted to talk about Jimmy Bernardo.
Jimmy Bernardo was a 12-year-old boy who had gone missing 3 years earlier in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. A month later, hunters would find his body. The case had stumped local investigators for years, But now Lent was about to tell everyone what had happened to Jimmy.
He was riding his bike through a strip mall in Pittsfield, Massachusetts. Louis Lent was a janitor at the cinema center there in Pittsfield.
When Jimmy stopped in front of the cinema to wait for a friend, that's when Lent said he offered him money to help him clean the movie theater. Jimmy agreed.
And then once Lent got him inside, he overpowered him and kidnapped him.
Lent told investigators he drove Jimmy 200 miles to a rural and isolated area near his hometown of Reynoldsville, New York. Then he said he strangled Jimmy to death and left him there.
He had details that only the killer and the police knew.
As horrific as that revelation was, investigators kept pressing him about Sara Wood.
The more we talked about Sara, we're probing, he's responding.
And then, 5 months after she went missing, Louis Lent finally confessed. Lent admitted that he had kidnapped, raped, and then murdered Sara Anne Wood.
She was vulnerable. He was hunting, and he found the victim.
And just like Jimmy Bernardo, Detective Lawrence says Lent's account matched details only known to investigators. Lent knew specifics about what Sara had been wearing and details about her bike that had not been made public.
He knew that the chain on the bike was broken. And he also said that the bike was a little bit big for her. I didn't know that. I found out later that it was.
Then Lawrence says Lent drew them a map showing where he said he buried Sara's body.
This is just a copy, obviously.
Right, but this is actually what Louis Lent did.
He drew that. I handed him a piece of paper, and this is what he drew.
And where did he say he put her?
Off Route 28, up by Blue Mountain Lake.
Blue Mountain Lake is located in a remote woody area near Racket Lake in New York's Adirondack Mountains. And within hours, police from all over New York State were dispatched and searched the area. Bob Wood was there along with Dusty, who was a senior in high school.
It was very cold. It was ridiculous. And it was tons of snow. Remember, a lot of helping. A lot of people.
How you guys doing for tarps up here?
Was that a time when you thought you might be able to bring Sara home?
Yeah.
For over 50 days, they searched for Sara in the Adirondacks.
It was 30 below zero. We could only stay outside for 20 minutes at a time. We were in waist-high snow. We had shovels, we're digging, we're looking for any evidence at all having anything to do with Sara. You know, we were hoping somebody would come up with something that had something to do with her. It just didn't happen.
As investigators continued to look for Sara's body, Lent would face murder charges in both Massachusetts and New York.
It was a rare occasion where everyone was laser focused on one event, which was find Sara, bring him to justice.
Before Louis Lent could be tried for Sara Wood's murder in New York, he first had to face charges in Massachusetts. In 1995, Louis Lent went on trial and was ultimately convicted for Becky Savarese's attempted kidnapping and was sentenced to 17 to 20 years. Almost 1.5 years later, after taking a plea, he was given a life sentence for murdering Jimmy Bernardo.
Television, radio, and newspaper outlets.
And then on June 6, 1996, Louis Lent arrived at Herkimer, New York, to a media frenzy.
And the district attorney wanted justice for Sara Anne Wood and her family.
Jeffrey Carpenter is Herkimer County's district attorney. He wasn't in office when Sara Wood was murdered, but he has studied Louis Lent's case files. He says the DA's office thought Louis Lent was going to plead guilty to killing Sara, but without warning, Lent changed his mind.
But it's my understanding that when he entered the courtroom and he saw certain members of the public, especially I think her family, he decided on that day he did not want to enter a plea,
Days later, Lent would change his mind again and finally entered a guilty plea.
What do you remember of him sitting there?
I couldn't believe how small a man. I couldn't believe it. Not imposing.
Almost 4 years after Sara Wood was abducted and murdered, Louis Lent was sentenced to 25 years to life. He was sent back to Massachusetts to serve the rest of his life in prison.
He will never cause harm to anyone else.
But it was not over for the Wood family and New York State Police investigators. They still needed to find Sara.
He changes his story so often, it's hard to tell what's the truth and what's fiction.
In fact, Detective Treen says Lent's original story that he buried her in the Racket Lake area turned out to be a lie.
He cashed a check on August 18th in Pittsfield at 6:18 p.m. So he did not physically have time to abduct Sara at around 2:30 p.m. and then drive to the Adirondacks, dig a grave, bury her, and then drive back to Pittsfield to cash a check.
So investigators continued to visit Lent in prison, hoping that over time he would reveal where he buried Sara and perhaps even disclose the murders of other victims. Detectives Fallon and Treen say they visited Lent in prison about 20 times.
Isn't it difficult at times, though, for the two of you not to just jump across the table and grab him?
No. One of the things you have to do is you have to leave hate outside of the room when you go in.
They didn't push him, but during their conversations, Lent revealed that he often suffered from blackouts and claimed he had an evil alter ego that he called Stephen.
He has this dichotomy, this is the word he used. He has a really good side that studies the Bible and actually was a traveling minister. Then he has this evil side, and he has these uncontrollable compulsions, is the way he put it, to do terrible things that he could not stop.
Somehow, Lent managed to hide that evil side from nearly everyone he knew.
Louis Lent spent the last year
Back in 1994, 48 Hours correspondent Richard Schlesinger interviewed some of Lent's friends.
This sidewall here, it was caving right in.
Right.
And
he helped you with that too, huh?
Oh, yes.
To Phil Schallies, who is legally blind, Lent was a good Samaritan.
Just came over and said, well, I'd be glad to give you a hand. I hear you're doing work on your foundation. He said, I'd be glad to help you out. We built a border all the way around. We put in probably hundreds of hours working together in that cellar. It was definitely hard work.
And he did that all out of the goodness of his heart?
Yes, he did.
To Frank Gillette, the dean of students at a Bible school that Lent attended, he was a gentleman.
He was intelligent, he was unassuming, he was quiet. One thing about Louis that everyone remembered was he always had his hand out to shake your hand when you were meeting one, and if you didn't watch out, he'd give you a big bear hug.
He had a lot of children with him, young kids. The kids would play video games, and then they would come in and go to the movies, and he would bring them home.
To Richard Bauman, who employed him, Lent seemed like a mentor to children.
They called him the big brother.
They did?
Oh, yeah.
The kids?
Yes.
Bauman owned the movie theater where Lent worked as a janitor for 6 years, and he thought he knew Lent very well.
I hired him. I worked side by side with him.
Tell me what's going on.
I just feel as though I may have missed something that he might have said or done that would have keyed me.
That would have let you know.
Just give me a clue that there's something wrong with this guy.
People have trouble understanding that you can have this very religious, God-fearing, nice, polite man and contrast that to his other side where he is hunting and preying on and killing children. Those can exist in one person.
Julia Cowley is a retired FBI agent and profiler who worked on cases like the Golden State Killer. She now hosts a true crime podcast called The Consult, Real FBI Profilers.
This podcast is about criminal profiling.
Cowley has never met Louis Lent, but at our request, she reviewed his background and studied his confessions. She says that what appeared to be Lent's desire to help people could actually have served a selfish purpose.
By helping all these people, this is a way to maybe hide who he really is, to gain people's trust. When you do that, you can manipulate them, you can control them. It's strategically motivated as opposed to being motivated by true emotion.
Just like other serial killers she has studied, Cowley says Lent is completely self-centered.
His needs come before anybody else's, obviously. He had no regard for his victims. He has no regard for victims' families.
Something Reese Treen says he has seen firsthand.
He knows what emotions are that other people have, but he doesn't feel them himself. One of the things that he said in the past is that the murders ruined his life. He's remorseful that he got caught, that it ruined his life, but he doesn't think in terms of it ruined anybody else's life. He just doesn't think that way.
Louis Lent so quickly admits to kidnapping and killing Sara Wood. Why not tell it all? Why not give all the details?
It's just a secret he wants to hold on to. It's his. It's the only thing he has that's his own that he can control. And a bit of sadism, knowing that family members want answers. Continuing to hurt them is something I think that he feeds off of. There's some enjoyment in there. Most killers don't tell us everything. They rarely give the full story.
Instead, Lent reveals what he wants, when he wants, on his own timetable. And in 2013, he revealed something new.
I've described it as speaking directly to the devil. He really is the devil.
As detectives Fallon and Treen continued to question Louis Lent about Sara Wood and other possible victims, in 2013, he made yet another confession.
He ended up admitting to killing Jamie Lusher.
9 months before Sara was abducted, Jamie Lusher, a 16-year-old teen with disabilities, disappeared in Westfield, Massachusetts, just 40 miles from the Pittsfield area.
Again, he was riding his bike through a parking lot of a Friendly's restaurant.
His bicycle was later found in a wooded area close by. Lent told investigators that after he kidnapped and murdered Jamie, he discarded the teenager's remains in Greenwater Pond in Beckett, Massachusetts.
We had divers go actually with the Massachusetts State Police divers, and they all dove the pond, and nothing was found.
As he has done many times before, Lent would later recant his confession. Authorities decided not to charge Louis Lent with Jamie's murder, hoping that one day he will lead them to his body.
At this point, we're not interested in further prosecution. He's not going anywhere.
At a press conference shortly after the confession, Jamie's sister talked about the grief she endured since her brother went missing.
Anybody that knows me knows I talk about this. I think about this every day.
It's this searing heartache, in part, that keeps authorities motivated to find the missing. So soon after Lent confessed to killing Jamie, DA Jeffrey Carpenter got permission to take Lent, who was serving his life sentence in Massachusetts, out of prison and back to New York. This time, they drove him around, hoping he would reveal anything that would help them find Sara.
So really, what did we have to lose? We had to do it. We drove to the Massachusetts border. We drove to the Vermont border. He took us to where she was abducted. He took us to where he claimed he murdered her.
But after 3 long days and over 600 miles of driving, Carpenter says New York authorities ended the operation.
The consensus was he absolutely knew where she was. He just was not going to tell us.
Before Carpenter sent Lent back to Massachusetts, he recorded this conversation with him.
You know, we spent some time here the last couple of days. Hope you feel you were treated with respect.
Oh, all the way.
Yeah, treated well?
Yes.
Well, that was our end of the bargain, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What was your end of the bargain?
Do the very best I can to find Sarah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is that what we've done?
That's what we've done. I would say that I tried. I was absolutely sure that I knew the route. But when it came down to it, I could only get partial of where I actually went.
What was going through your head when you're talking to him?
Anger. He does not forget details. He recalls details. He recalls many things until he wants to pretend he doesn't remember.
A decade after that fruitless search, in November of 2023, investigators were back out looking again, this time at the Green Mountain National Forest in Vermont, after Detective Treen identified an area with landmarks that Lent had talked about during their many conversations.
Just too many things matched up. A lot of boxes were checked.
What's more, search and rescue dogs taken to the area had alerted to a possible body there.
So we were hopeful, optimistic that we would find something there, and we never found anything.
But authorities kept looking. Earlier this year, detectives went back to the cellar that Lent worked in with Phil Shalley's to see if they missed something in 1994. The search turned up no new evidence.
Do you feel in a way that you might be running out of time? Louis Lent is in his 70s.
It's a concern, but that's one of the things we can't control.
Regardless of the challenges, authorities say they will never stop looking for Sara Wood and Jamie Lusher. Dusty Wood says he chooses not to think about Louis Lent.
Every day I'm less angry because I devote my energy to positive things.
Every year, Dusty and some family members participate in the Ride for Missing Children.
Ready?
Rolling!
A 78-mile bike ride that was created in Sarah's honor by Bob Wood. The riders wore jerseys that were turquoise and pink, the colors that Sarah wore when she was abducted. Riders stop at schools along the way to talk about abduction prevention.
The most important thing for us as a family is to protect kids and make sure that if there's anything that can be done to protect them from monsters like Louis Lent, that it be done.
Riders pay silent tribute to those children whose families hold out hope that they will be found alive, and to children who went missing and are never coming home, like Sara Anne Wood. Dusty says he and his family are grateful to their community, who have supported them since the beginning.
There'll be never a way to repay the kindness of strangers that opened up the possibility of giving the best chance to my sister.
He's not sure if they will ever find his sister's body, but he is at peace.
I'm waiting for the day I see Sarah in heaven, and I know that day is coming, and that makes me feel good.
"48 Hours. Don't miss an episode."